I'm Dr. Trish, and today we're here with Natalie to talk about her experience with ketamine. Natalie, welcome.
Thank you.
I am so excited because you have had a lot of different things happen in your life that have been frightening, that have been with health issues and different things, and I want you to talk a little bit about that, if you would,
Sure.
and then we'll talk about how ketamine has helped you.
Okay. I have had intermittent depression for a number of years. I've been off and on medication for depression, and that helped to a certain degree. But in the last couple of years, I had some experiences that made my depression, my anxiety, and some PTSD much more acute. And I sought out therapy, saw several different therapists, and finally stumbled upon you and your practice, not really knowing anything about ketamine and not knowing if I was appropriate for that. And the things that led to this more acute stage was a very serious health issue. I was sick for a long period of time. I went into cardiac arrest, which is essentially dying. I don't remember any of that experience in the hospital, and that was very troubling. Shortly after that, I experienced the loss of my father. My father passed away, and I had been the caregiver to my parents for 5 or 6 years in their home. And that was a really difficult experience for me. I'm also divorced with 2 children who need me, and was very anxious about my health and how that reflected on them and what they had experienced as a result of my health crisis. And so I knew that I absolutely needed some assistance. And so you and I met. We visited a couple of times before you determined that ketamine might be an option for me, and you presented that option, and I thought about it and decided that I would like to see if that would help.
I want to stress something here because I want people to understand this isn't just something that was kind of fly by night here, or you had gone for help with your depression for years, and it was kind of treatment resistant, what we call in the field, right?
Yes.
That there was nothing that seemed to help. Meds didn't help. Therapy, maybe a little bit, but just didn't help with it.
Right.
And you were in crisis, basically, weren't you?
I really was, and it took my children and a work colleague to say, this is something that you need to do immediately. And so I felt that as well. I needed to be, I was feeling better with my health, but emotionally I was not. Yeah. And that I got to a crisis point and knew that I needed help right now.
So how was ketamine, you have different experiences each time. The protocol is like 4 to 6 times, right? But each time, and especially people will come in, they're quite nervous the first time, especially if they've never had that experience of being out of body or doing drugs or anything that would give them that experience. So tell me how it was for you the first time that you did ketamine.
Well, I'm not a drug user, or I don't drink alcohol, and so it was really something that I couldn't compare, and it's something that is very difficult to explain. The the way that you had it set up here is you already knew about the things that I wanted to work on. And
we had you come with an intention, right?
Right, with an intention. And that intention was dealing with the trauma of being so ill. But it was interesting that first time as I was under the influence of the ketamine, I actually saw a timeline of my life. The experience that I was wanting to deal with was there in the timeline, but I saw an arrow go all the way to the beginning of my life and who I really was. And so even though I had this intention, my brain knew this is something we need to start at the ground level and build up to that experience. And that first experience with ketamine, I believe, and I've listened to that session that we recorded.
So we have you record all of your sessions. So if you can't remember, because ketamine tends to put people in a state where you're talking to their subconscious, and if you can't remember it, we have you record your sessions.
Exactly. And it took me back to who I was, essentially, with myself, with my faith, with my God, with where I fit in my family, and with, I remember saying, or I remember hearing that I said, I don't have to be perfect. My Father in heaven loves me right where I am. I don't have to be on a level up here. And I saw kind of 3 different levels. There was this perfected level, there was the middle level, and then there was a bottom level. And I was right there in the middle. And I said, Heavenly Father loves me right where I am, and I wouldn't be happy at that perfected level. I'm not there yet, and I need to be okay with where I am. And my parents love me right in that middle, in the middle. My spot is in the middle. And it immediately released the pressure that I have placed on myself to always feel like a failure, and that I was constantly trying to be perfect and I couldn't measure up. That I was okay. I wasn't down here. I was right here, and I can do things to improve myself, but I didn't have to continue to punish myself. And it was so overwhelming that I couldn't wait to tell my family, my mother who was still living, and people that I interact with at work who are in the healthcare profession, that I am learning. And it was not something, let me see if I can explain this. People tell you that all the time. You don't have to be perfect. Be gracious with yourself. Give yourself grace.
Be self-accepting.
Right. And you hear that all the time. And in my mind, I would tell myself that. But this was different because it was almost like I became that. It was pure, absolute knowledge. It wasn't something that was suggested to me. It wasn't something that I keep reminding myself I have to do. It was an absolute knowledge, which is something I have never experienced before. And I left here feeling so light and feeling so relieved of that stress and pressure that I put upon myself. And even though we didn't deal on my timeline of things, we didn't deal with this yet, I needed to be able to deal with who I was first and how I perceived myself. And I absolutely knew with every part of my body, it was like it was in my DNA now, I was okay.